Okay, so we're going to have a fireside chat before we send you downstairs. So now I'm going to ask Mr. Francisco Salguero to come up here. He is the Deputy CIO at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Let's give him a warm welcome. So I'm going to take a cue from Pete, and instead of reading your bio, if you could, Francisco, just kind of share a little bit about what you do as the Deputy CIO at USDA, and then your mission there as an organization.
Sure, absolutely. So at USDA as the Deputy CIO, really working with Gary Washington, our CIO, and overseeing the operation side of IT. And so for us at department level, we've gone through a vast modernization over the last, not only IT, but organizationally over the last 2 years. So once Gary and I were appointed to USDA by Secretary Perdue, we really looked at to revamp how things were, leveraging things such as FITARA. And so what are the things that we as CIOs and OCIO needed to make sure we were in better understanding of, better control of what the IT spend was for USDA. A 100,000 employee organization with 9 mission areas, 22 agencies. At the time we were at 22 agencies and 22 CIOs. Staff offices and agencies. So over the last 2 years, what we did, and I'm giving you a little bit of the bio, but also what we're doing at USDA, we actually reorganized. Now we have 9 missionary assistant CIOs and only 1 CIO, which is Gary Washington. To make it very clear, the lines of accountability from a FITARA perspective, from the Secretary's understanding, and I wanted to make sure we wanted to move forward with IT as a corporation, not just as individual agencies and missions, but overall as a department. And so that's what we've really been able to do. And so on that side, Gary's been very focused on strategic, where we're going, working very closely with the Secretary and Deputy Secretary, also with OMB, the appropriators, and making sure we have everything we need to align ourselves appropriately. I've been doing a lot of the operations. We have several key initiatives, end user consolidation, where we're actually consolidating the help desk. So for the IT desk side support, that's coming from the department. Where it's typically been done at the agency and staff office level, we're now handling it at the department level. So we're going through that consolidation. So that staff, the Client Experience Center currently houses 700 federal employees throughout our continental U.S., territories, and Hawaii, Alaska. So obviously we're basically all over the place. And then working with other agencies within USDA, we also have international presence. So that's one big thing. Also, cloud adoption for us has been very key in cloud adoption, working very closely with the Office of American Innovation and making sure that from a USDA perspective, we're not talking about cloud and individually going out there from an agency, but leveraging economies of scale and be able to move forward together, whatever vendor we're looking at commercial cloud perspective, and truly leveraging that. And we had over 50 data centers within USDA. We're actually down to 18. And we're actually, by the end of this year, we're going to be 9. So that'll be 9 data centers that we're consolidating to 2, which will be our main data center in Kansas City, National Information Technology Center, or our backup center, which is in St. Louis. USDA FedRAMP data centers that we can actually house on-prem solutions if commercial cloud is not available for the needs or mission that we need to move forward with. So those are 2 big things, and just those 2 organizations alone, I've got over 1,000 employees and contractors. So it's a pretty big staff that's really moving forward with modernizing where we're going, looking at how can we change the face of IT within USDA, and really moving us forward from what Secretary Perdue wants us to be, which is really about data-driven, customer-focused, and really understanding and being the most efficient federal organization within the U.S. basically.
Wow, that was a really
pretty mouthful.
Yeah, that was a good overview, like from a modernization strategy and modernization effort perspective. Let me tie it to the mission though of the organization for a second. So I'm a Dominican kid from Brooklyn. I joined the Army when I was 17 years old. When I joined the Army, I got stationed in Germany. I had never been south of New Jersey. So when I went to Fort Bragg, coming back from Germany, and I really started to see the U.S. and really, the agricultural aspects of the United States. I had seen that in the Dominican Republic, not really over here. So from an agriculture perspective, when a lot of Americans think of agriculture, they don't think of technology, right? So can you help us understand, we're talking about how IoT enables mission success, right? How are you at USDA leveraging technology in general, IoT more specifically, to enable mission success around agriculture?
So actually, when most people think of USDA, they think of meats. You know, the meat product they get from Safeway or Giant, say, okay, that's USDA. But USDA's mission is vast. I've been there for 14 years. And my 2 years as deputy, I've learned even more of the mission and work that we do. So one example, it's not even related to farm and food products, it's rural development. We provide loan and grants. And so from an IoT perspective, our inspectors that do housing inspection, just like we do in our normal housing when we buy a house, well, we have to do those periodic checks because if you have a loan from USDA, we have to make sure those multifamily housing or single-family housing are kept up to the standards that we have within the government. So from that, inspectors would go to a house, pen and paper, write everything down, and basically go back to their office, and they had to go to the office and basically put all that information and rekey it in. So they would spend half the day inspecting and the other half in the office. And so what we're able to do over the last several years is provide them with iPads. And something as simple as an iPad allows them to do real-time logging of information with near real-time connection back to the department because we are talking rural America. And so I'll talk a little bit about broadband as well. But with that, broadband is not always available. It's just like you go into those little spots when you start hitting Southern Virginia or Northern Maryland, hey, I can't connect my phone. Same thing happens. And so that's one of the things that we started to enable folks to actually leverage technology within USDA so they could have iPads, do an inspection, real-time logging, near real-time getting information into our systems. And so that was just one small aspect of IT can enable the mission better. Precision ag is a big endeavor. Farmers today, whether it's those big farmers, Purdue, and other farmers out in the Midwest, they actually do precision farming, where they're actually using GPS capabilities within their tractors to actually know where they have to farm, what they can actually start cultivating their products. And so from a USDA perspective, we have to catch up to that, to be honest. From a government side, we're not always on the leading edge, definitely not the bleeding edge. Maybe sometimes get to that leading edge sometimes, but for us, it's actually starting to catch up where the industry is going from a farming perspective. So we've been very focused on data analytics and how that can work with precision agriculture, getting information from the farmers and tractors and all the various systems, with drone technology. That's a big thing that within USDA, we're trying to better leverage how the farmers are going to be used that to basically map out their land, map out their farms. That's something that, somebody would have to go drive and actually the old school way of actually doing landscaping, understanding what the terrain is. So for us, it's leveraging those technologies that are available to the farmers today and bringing it into USDA and saying, how can we move forward? So Secretary Perdue has, made it a very precision, but very concerted effort to look at precision ag and involving not just those folks that are the techies, but the folks that are in the programs to understand the data. Because data science is not just about IT, it's about the programs, understanding the information being gathered.
That's really good. I mean, you did mention, and you're right, a lot of people do think of USDA approved meats, right? So for those of us that served in uniform and that may be deployed overseas, what we call downrange, I know that when we first go into a country, we eat whatever we can eat, but then later on, everything that we eat, it always felt good, Mike, right? That we were eating something that was USDA approved. So from that perspective, how are you leveraging technology and maybe IoT or maybe this precision ag to kind of protect our food source, right? So we know that we've had some outbreaks, we've had some things that have happened within the food chain, and we've talked a lot about protecting the supply chain from a logistics perspective, but can you talk to us about what you're doing to leverage technology or IoT to protect the food chain?
Absolutely. So let me go back to the meats, right? So Food Safety Inspection Service, FSIS, that's under the Food Safety Mission Area. And so they're responsible for basically meat products, poultry, beef and pork. And so they actually, our inspectors actually sit in the plants and actually do inspection of the meat products before it actually goes through the plant to make sure it's free of any diseases, any other issues, bacteria type of thing. So one of the things that, back to IoT, is actually leveraging virtual reality. And how can we actually provide the inspectors with more training? How can they understand the things they need to look out for? So being able to leverage that type of technology, and they don't have to go into an office, get away from what their day-to-day job is into the poultry plant or meat plant. They can actually do it from there. And they start training, okay, what's the latest outbreak? How can I be sure that I'm looking at the right thing? And with virtual reality, I can actually start looking and seeing that real time, as opposed to in a manual or a book or in a screen where you can't necessarily see exactly what you might be finding into the products you're looking at. So that's one of theirs, like food safety. Actually, it's been about 2 years, so we've been looking at that. And then also leveraging what we call the PHS system, PHIS system. So for that, they're really leveraging, again, technology and mobile technology so that the inspectors, again, don't have to be sitting in an office keying information they find. Now, in a poultry or any type of product like that, you've got to be worried about the blood and all the, not the fun stuff people want to hear about with their products, but the inspectors go through a lot of interesting, shall I say, areas. So we have to have the right technology and have the right capabilities. So we give them an iPad or ruggedized type of tablet as opposed to what we might just get day to day that we might have an iPhone, things like that.
So you've talked quite a bit about like the inspectors and inputting this data. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we're going to open this up for questions. So all of that data has to go somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And then I would assume that you guys are running some type of analytics against that data. So as a segue into this question, since you brought up poultry, I'm going to take a detour and then come back. So my cousin, as an anecdote, I have a cousin in the Dominican Republic who owns a chicken farm. And he runs anywhere from 30 to 35,000 chickens. And so I was there. I was pretty impressed with the type of information and the type of technology that he's been leveraging over there. But that is a third world country, right? So going back to the United States, you have all of these inspectors with iPads now. They don't have to go to work to actually work. They're inputting all of this data. What are you doing around big data and analytics to kind of identify trends, information? How do you disseminate that information? What do you do with it?
Sure, absolutely. So actually, that's a good one. It's almost like you gave me a lob on that one. Well, for the last 2 years, when we started this modernization effort, Ted Kalk, we actually named as the Chief Data Officer. Even before the act came out and said, okay, you have to name one, we actually had one. So we were ahead of the curve on that one. And so what we've been able to do over the last 18 months is start with the executive dashboard. So the secretary so let me start with this anecdote. The secretary wanted to know how many employees we had within USDA. He had no less than 6 different answers. Right? Because depending on who he asked, when he asked, different answers. Right? Whether it was the HR system, and HR alone would give him 3 different answers. Wow. Then you start hitting finance, and they would have 2 different answers. Right? So I say 6, but it might have only been 3 areas that he touched upon. But from there, he very much saw, okay, I needed one place of the truth, if you will. And so what we did is set up in the cloud, basically started our data analytics framework. And so from there, we started with the executive dashboards. So key information, whether it's IT, HR, finance, and really those are the key things that the secretary wanted to know about. And so what now we've been able to start moving towards is the mission area dashboards. And that's really focused on, as you just talked about, what's going on with plants, what's going on with poultry, what's going on with meat, what's going on with forest service, with forest fires, those type of things. He wants that information at his fingertips. So we've set up the platform to actually do that. We've actually, by the end of this year, we'll have finished 8 mission areas. We have 1 remaining that will be going next year. And start saying, okay, these are key performance indicators that the secretary wants to know about, things that report up to not only OMB and Congress, but the appropriators, say, okay, this is how we're meeting the mission. And now we're able to deliver that information from that one truth, one source of truth. And it's not an easy task, because as big as the organization is, the systems, we have, I would say, over 1,000 systems. I'm not kidding. We have over 1,000 systems within USDA, from knowing, understanding plant information, inspection information from veterinarians, from, again, going back to poultry products, those type of things. So doing mission area dashboards and data analytics is actually not an easy thing. It's never easy, but for an organization like USDA, it's been quite an effort to do so. But for us, is setting up the platform, making sure that we have that enabled for people to, at their fingertips, understand what's going on within USDA. I think the key thing for us in looking at that was the Secretary, again, wanting to be able to go to one place, understanding the answer, and again, looking at his iPad or phone, and not just his computer. So it can't be just a storyboard that we have to worry about printing out. He wants it real time,
right,
in the information that he can talk to the White House, go talk to his peers in cabinet, things like that.
So let me ask you, and I know I said the last question, but I do need to follow up with this question. So I understand the dashboard for the Secretary, but some of this mission area dashboard seemed like it would be good information for actual farmers or citizens. So is that any of that forward-facing, customer-facing, where they can see it?
We're working towards that. What we're doing, important for us, is using open data and making sure that as we publish that information for the mission area dashboards, to also put that up into the open data portal, and so that farmers can get to that. Now, we have talked about actually providing them the capability to not just get data, but actually do some analytics, on the website as well. But we're not there yet. We're looking towards that, but really focused internally within the missionaries, but also getting into the open data and leveraging that more than anything.
So we have a couple of minutes here. I'll open it up for questions. The Deputy CIO for the Department of Agriculture. Sir.
Takbolo of Intel. Just a question around, what do you see as the next frontier for technology for the USDA? Is it AI, blockchain, and what are the challenges that you see that may hinder you from adopting them?
Thank you. That's a good question, because sometimes I don't want to think about that. I want to finish what we're doing, but that can't happen. We know those things are there. Blockchain, we actually, within food safety, we're actually starting to leverage some pilots on leveraging blockchain to actually use that for certificates. So we work with international partners and be able to pass information for import exports. So we're working on that on the blockchain side. We're also looking at RPA. So that's one big thing that we're doing internally. OCFO office, they stood up basically a platform in conjunction with us as partners for RPA. And so we're now standardizing that for the enterprise. So RPA, definitely over the next year, I see is going to be a big thing within USDA, because as big as we are, we're also very stovepiped. And so from that side, what we're seeing now, because of all these efforts that we're doing, we're seeing that we need to talk more together. And as we talk as people more, then our systems need to talk more so they can pass information and not have to go look up information into one system or the next, but actually have it integrated better from an RPA perspective. And then obviously AI, as we have the Centers of Excellence, contact centers and customer experience, AI plays a big role into that, into our systems that we're doing as well. So that one is not as mature as the RPA side and a little bit more behind than on the blockchain, but we are looking at that as well.
So for those of you that don't know, because I'm a big acronym person, RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation, where basically bots, these small bots, replace mundane tasks or maybe even advanced tasks that a human would do. And we at Worldwide do partner with RPA vendors to be able to provide integrated solutions. Any other questions here for the Deputy CIO of the Department of Agriculture? Any other questions? Sir.
Hello? Steve Rabinowitz, GAO. I was just curious how, it sounds like a lot of this has been centralized at USDA, and how that would reconcile with, like, when you have a lot of decentralization, it allows some more agility with, like, trying new things, and just how do you reconcile the ability to be agile with having a centralized focus?
So what I can say, what we are centralizing a lot, is end user consolidation, right? So the end user help desk. Also looking at infrastructure, so the cloud, the network, those type of areas. But those type of things are really what should be common among all of us as though we do it. But we really now allow the mission area assistant CIOs to focus more on the mission area needs to give them that agility. But we also, what we're seeing is there more cooperation and collaboration, and there's talking amongst each other. So they are still able to leverage the lessons learned from each other. As one, like Bajinder Pal within food safety is looking at blockchain, they can start talking to him and leverage, okay, what's the experience there and how are they leveraging it? Because it's a nice keyword and it's a buzzword that we all use within IT, but it's not really fully understood from the program areas. And from an IT, we may understand the technology behind it or starting to understand it, but we don't fully understand the impacts from the program side. So we're not losing the agility side because we're letting the mission areas continue to focus on that, but what we're doing the centralization side, we're focusing on those big items that they really shouldn't have to worry about.
So a few years ago, I think it was 3 years ago now, the Wall Street Journal changed one of the names of their sections in their paper to a technology section from a business section. And they said that every business is now a technology business. And so I would like to say, even within the federal government, that every agency is pretty much now a technology agency because of where we are and how widespread technology is. So thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Yep.
Once again, let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary.